Hi and welcome back to IT Bazonga YouTube channel. In this demo, we are going to see how we can create custom error handler pages to display different kind of errors to the user. Okay, how we can control and how we can display the users in some informative way and before a different kind of environment, how we can give some certain environments some kind of information to the user, because we, as I mentioned in previous demo also, we are not allowed to provide internal detail to the production. All right, let's see. Before that, let's start the our application. So make sure that I'm selecting run mode, not the debug mode. Okay, so if you see here, let's come back to the postman. Let's call that error endpoints. So we are getting this error that says, for assumptions, you see, let's see, in the development environment we are getting this error. So it seems like therefore DB update related issue, then it's regarding the SQL exception. Yeah, this gives some idea for the development environment. Let's move to the production and see how it can be shown in the production. Stop it. So now let's call this endpoint. So we are getting 500 internal server error, but there is no details because by default Microsoft.NET even hide the sensitive information like um, error message and internal error message won't be available in the production environment. That's a default mechanism come up with .NET, so that help us to limit the internal detail to the production. But how we can let the users, there might be an error, there is an error regarding this, so you have to have a way to fix it, but we can't expose the internal detail, but we should have a way to tell the customer where is the where is the issue in the production. All right, so therefore we are going to implement a custom error handler mechanism that will display different kind of information for different kind of environment. For an example, in the development environment, we will explicitly tell all the issues what we have in our system, what are the actual issue, then a developer can fix it. But in the production environment, we will provide some basic information that help them to fix it, and our user can understand what's going wrong here. Okay, for that, now we are going to implement an exception logic with the controller. Let's see how we can do. So now we are going to create a new custom error handler. So let's stop the application. So we are going to create a new controller, so that will be redirect users to, that should be that error controller will be an error hand so that should be a custom error handler that will redirect user to see the errors. So wait, let me show. Let's try to add a new controller. So let's see, adding new controller. Controller name will be ErrorHandlerController CS. Okay, so let's add to the git. So this controller will contain a detail for handle the basics exception handler, error handler for not exception handler, error handler for our application. Let's write that code here. So we are going to add a route that should be error. Okay, and so the action should be public action results. That will handle the handle errors. Okay, nice. So that will return a method called problem. Let me show you. It's an inbuilt method. Let me show you. So if you go to the definition and implementation, external sources, alright, so he can see metadata. So that particular method will return object results that contain detail, instance, status, title and type. So this is automatically pick up the from the problem detail factory. It automatically provide the detail for us. Okay, but we can override this. We will see how we can override in next session. So now let's see how it can bring that detail for particular error to our system. Okay, let's go and find, and yeah, this action results handle error, that will give return a problem detail, and yeah, controller. And also the other things, it will be an not a typical API controller, because it did not give any details to the and this not be not an endpoint that gives any informatic detail that required for this application, but instead of that it's just giving the error detail. Therefore we are removing that from usual route like API routes, and we are going to use this controller name is set as a route. Let me show you as usual. Let's type this and I remove that API slash, and obviously it's an controller for API controller, and the main point here is we should allow and we should display this error message to authorized and unauthorized users. Okay, therefore we make sure that it should allow anonymous. So we know, right, when we put authorized, only the authorized users can see it, but since if we want to display this error to the unauthorized authenticated people also, so we have to add the allow anonymous, then it can be displayed to any users. All right, public class 100, maybe a controller or controller base route error. Let's run the application and see the response. And we forgot to do that. We have to, since we have added this, we have to use it. So let's, now we need to tell our application. So we have to call this program, this particular controller. So we know, right, if the environment is not development, so this particular error handler will be displayed. Make sure that use exception handler, and we have to provide the controller name, that is error handler. I'm very lazy to type, therefore I just copy paste and remove that part. So controller part we have to remove the usual routing. So best practice to have everything is simple, and that method name is handle error, and the route is error. Okay, why I am, you may see that, but we already there. Why I am going and coming, because you can have a way that way why we are adding this code and from where it is coming. Okay, so instead of that, I know this endpoint already, but I can simply just type error handle slash error. But you should have an idea why we are adding this route, because our control, we are going to use this error handler controller for environment that not is in development, and that should be handled by this particular controller. So we are giving the controller name. So we know this control attribute gives a name. Without this controller part, it take the first part suffix, oh sorry, prefix of this controller part, and that will be the endpoint name, and the method, error method, will be the name of that particular endpoint. Okay, so now let's run the application and see how this response come for the production. Let's call this error endpoint. Alright, so now make sure that we have removed that slash API from the endpoint here. So therefore our host slash controller name, the method name. Okay, that is that endpoint. So this is what we are getting, that error message detail when we run in production. It gives the type and title, status code, and trace ID. So we can give more details. Let me configure next. So we can customize this error and give more detail than this exact detail actually, and that will do, and see how it comes for production. All right, okay, this is how it comes, and we can customize this error handler for development environment as well. Okay, so whenever the error comes, it is automatically handled by this error handler controller. Let's see how we can more customize these error results. So let's see. So when we're running in the production, so we got this one. So when you run it, so let's see how we can configure for development and production JS. Okay, so in here, if you see that if you run this application in different environment, we have to customize that error message for each environment. So let's see how we can customize it for development environment. So I'm going to do some different approach. Let's see route. So here I'm going to use something different name, like to specify its development. Error, earlier we had error, now error development. So you can choose whatever name you want. So now the same public action results. So here what we are going to use is, so earlier we use directly handle error, that automatically pick up the whatever the errors come from the application that displays, because we here also we can pass an parameter like details. Okay, but we don't know what is the exact error. So whatever the error that comes based on the definition that we have seen in the previous demo previously, it will just display those. But in the development environment, we have to give exact and specific details about that, and we have to consider that that detail should not expose to the production environment. So therefore, so I'm going to get a new name because we can handle errors in development. Okay, handle error development. Then I'm going to pass a parameter environment, because that I mentioned we should tell that this method don't expose anything to the environment rather than development. For that, I'm injecting the environment host service. Let's show you how to do that. From services, I host an environment. Here I'm selecting, giving a naming for that. Okay, host environment. Then I'm not doing this. Here I just telling that if that host environment dot is development, not if this host environment it can display, but we are telling if it is not development environment, do nothing. That means return not found, because we don't want to expose the detail to other environment than development. For that other environment we have this detail, so whatever the issues come based on the overall idea, that will return from this endpoint error one. So this is what we are developing now, only for specifically for development environment. So now we have defined that so this route error development, so we are saying don't need to expose anything to development environment. Then we are going to add an exception handler. So exception handler, okay, HTTP context feature get exception. Yeah, thanks intelligence. So our exception handler, so we have created that HTTP context features get exception handler feature, that we have done. But what we have to return in here is return problem. So whatever the problem comes, it will return with the detail. Details, most probably that basic details that we can give. So we use exception handler. So exception handler dot error, we are going to display error in a exception if does exist, return stack trace. And so make sure that let me type complete this title exception handler feature, just get the error messages. Okay, so let format this. Alright, so here we should understand that, so we are creating exception handler with that returning the problem detail. So what are the things, if you want something else also you can add. Okay, let's see for an example, if you want to put some, there are so many arguments that we can create. So if you want to give more detail, you can add that if you want. All right, so I am just giving title and detail description. Okay, I make sure that if that particular error contain in an exception only, you have to add the stack trace. So if you put like this, if doesn't have any in exception, then it will be a null. So therefore make sure that it contain exception, then only it will give the stack trace. If not, it won't give. That gives the only error message. All right, so now this is one thing. Yeah, now for the development, this other environment for this, let me put a comment to get some environment. All right, let's run in this application in development environment, and we will get an error that I have seen earlier, but I'm going to explain that. So when we run the application, we will get an error, fail to load API definition because Swagger unable to handle our new endpoint, this particular endpoint. So Swagger documenting not be able to documenting this particular endpoint. Since this endpoint for handling errors, we can tell OpenAPI Explorer that ignore this particular endpoint. So for that we have to stop the application, and adding an new annotation like API Explorer setting, ignore API true. So then what will happen, this particular API will be ignored by Open API and the documenting issue will be resolved. So not only for these, any endpoints that you don't want to expose to documenting, then you can simply ignore it. Sometimes you may add some test APIs, a sample API, example APIs, or something that not should be used for actual purpose, like giving the data to the user. Then you can use that ignore API annotation. See, if you see here, that particular endpoint is not listed here. Now just try to run the application in the development environment. So it's giving a detailed definition. An error occurred while processing your request, and this is what we got. Okay, and because why we getting the previous error, because we just created an endpoint. So this is a good time that we can find the common mistake that we made. So we have created an special exception endpoint for development environment, but we didn't tell our application where I should call. So let me copy paste. I just lazy to type. So simply we just add this, and we have to error handler, name of the endpoint, error development. So now if it is development environment, I just removing this breakpoint. Sorry, I just did there. Okay, if it is development environment, you use this particular exception, and there you mention if it is not development environment, not to show anything, then we know, right? So let's run the application and see the output. App is running. Just come back here, call the endpoint. Why? Check the environment. So let's see what was the issue was. We are calling an endpoint called error, right? So that particular error coming from error controller. If you see here that API/controller, but we have added the without API. Don't confuse here. So we actually, this particular error handler only we have removed the API part, because we are not going to use this particular endpoint from user input. It is automatically fetched based on the environment when exception occurred. When error comes, only this particular endpoint systematically called. But our endpoint, this error controller that we are user itself, we are calling it. Therefore now when we call this and change this error, so now we are getting that particular error. So that's giving the detailed description for a development environment for any error occurred. For in this scenario, that the issue is updating database and SQL command related issue that we will fix. Anyhow, now we understood that in the development environment, our application giving meaningful detail for the developer based on that error handler that we have defined here. If it is moving to the production one, that will give, wait until the app is not running. Okay, still running. Okay, so in the production, this how we will get the error message. So in the development, we are giving more detail regarding the errors. So these is the things what we wanted to discuss here. So now we can display errors based on the environment. So in previous demo, I can provide the link if you want. In the previous demo, we have seen how we can add different kind of environment and based on environment how we can add different kind of configuration for each environment. In this demo we have seen how we can provide details error, so custom error that can give more, so custom error handler pages, how that gives more detail for users based on different environment. And make sure that we made one mistake earlier, careless mistake. We have created a controller, error controller, to display an error. So this is that what, okay. And so make sure that that particular endpoint will be called by user API/error. That is we created for this finding the error, and that should be displayed in the user, how we can show it. Okay, this is for just this particular project only we have created. So we have created an endpoint with error. That name of the controller itself, the name is error. That will, the purpose of creating that error endpoint to display error, and then we have come to a place how we can differentiate that error in different environments. So this is the goal of this particular demo. So if you follow up this, you will understood this particular controller for displaying error, and this error handler controller we have designed to display that particular error for different environment. For this one, for production or except development, this is for only for development. We have seen how that error will be displayed on different environment. So that's all about this demo. In next demo we will see more detail how we can see errors by using filters. That's all guys, see you all in another video. Thanks for watching.